teams in sports generally are just such a fantastic asset class. And at the end of the day, it is IP. And IP that reinvents every year, right? Like, if you think about it, Marvel is IP, and you get a new Marvel character or movie every X number of years or whatever it might be. But a sports team is a sports team, and every season there's a shot at a championship, and every year there's a different lineup or whatever it might be. And just by virtue of existing, you're refreshing your IP and creating new storylines. And I think, sure, the way the IP gets monetized might change or might evolve, but the value of the IP inherently is only going to go up.
Welcome to the Navigating Sports Business Podcast, where we uncover insights from the most prominent leaders in our industry. Today, I'm happy to be joined by Ahmed Darwish, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of NESN. Ahmed, how you doing, man?
Good to see you. Good to chat.
You are working for NESN, and one of the most amazing things, the things we love talking about when we talk to your group, is that you have such iconic brands. And, not only cost what's on NESN, but within the Fenway Sports Group portfolio with like Liverpool FC and all the other brands as well. You guys have the luxury of going to market with a fan base that is going to pay attention for better or for worse. And coupled with that, there's a lot of disruption in the media marketplace. You guys have been to the forefront of all the innovation happening across the media marketplace, and you launched NESN 360. You guys are about year 4, am I right, in your D2C journey?
It'll be 3 years old come June 1st.
3 years old, just okay. So I'm a year off here.
Yeah.
But many of the teams,
or as of June 1st,
many of the teams and properties we talk to are not even in year 1. They're perhaps in year 0 looking at it. So I'm particularly excited about this conversation to hear about the learnings that you guys have come through. What sort of insights can you share on your journey and your path and along the way? So why don't we start in 2022 when you guys got launched and when you joined NESN? What was that experience like? What was the marketplace like? What were some of the thinking that went in? You had some D2C experience over at Stars. Can you speak to just painting that picture?
Yes, 2022. I had a few less gray hairs, but okay. DTC was not new to the industry, obviously. By that point, Disney Plus was live. Stars has been in market since 2016, and I came here where sports, however, was not deep in streaming yet. It's weird saying that because over the past 3 years, like everybody knows, like, oh, Thursday Night Football is now on Amazon, or Netflix picked up some NFL games, and like these pretty substantive things that you wouldn't have expected that make it seem as though sports has always been in streaming. But, if you do go back to 2022, live and sports were confined to broadcast or cable. And so coming in, we were clear that we were trying to be at the forefront of something that we know generally audiences are moving towards. And one of the headlines when we launched was NESN, something along the lines of like NESN begins this like D2C streaming experiment. And I remember using that in one of our discussions internally of like, this is what this is, because nobody's done this before, and who knows how users are going to behave and how receptive they are going to be to our product and so on. And so you kind of have to go in with a lot of assumptions and use general media and general D2C and general streaming sort of experiences that you then apply here. And fortunately, over the past 3 years, we get the benefit of having that experience and learned what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, it started with TV everywhere with an authenticated experience, which was a benefit as a cable consumer. But if you were cutting the cord, or, a lot of customers now find that they're not finding what they need, or they're not getting what they need out of their cable bundle, they're perfectly fine going with streaming options. Those are a lot of things we looked at together when we were evaluating the D2C opportunity with your group, and learned a lot and saw, obviously, the cable marketplace is still, where big sports fans are and where people watch. And I'm still a subscriber. I pay a large amount, but I know if I try to slice and dice and get my products in many different ways, I'm going to be paying probably more than going out of that. But how, I guess, in terms of the evolution from where you guys started, from direct to consumer, and then now fast forward to 2025, you guys now have a fast channel. Could you speak a little bit to like the whole offering and how the portfolio has evolved and where you see the various different products? And if you could walk us through the different products that NESN has available for the fans and the thinking behind introducing each one of those into the marketplace.
Yeah. So zooming out a little bit, I'd say one of the things we've been clear-eyed on is DTC is not a silver bullet or complete solution to what has historically been a fantastic business model with excellent reach and is undergoing meaningful shifts. So as I call it, DTC is just one of our distribution channels. It happens to be now for us a substantive distribution channel and one that we could control for the most part in its entirety. But at the end of the day, we want to reach as many fans as possible and make it as easy as possible for fans to connect with the teams, whether they're existing fans or they are not yet fans. And so when you take that lens to it, it's a little bit of a different puzzle to solve, so to speak, because historically in the wholesale distribution world, it's like, cool, like we give our distributors the feed and let them figure out how to get subscribers and retain them and engage them and so on. And sure, like we'll market a little bit, but as you said, like we're in Boston and people here are huge sports fans, so we get that tailwind behind us. But when, half as many homes have a pay TV package as they did, a handful of years ago, that's something that we have to solve. And so D2C was a piece of solving that. So making sure that, for the people that don't have access today, we give them an opportunity to get the live games however which way they want to watch. So if you want to watch on your Fire TV, great. If you want to watch on your mobile phone, great. If you want to watch on web, cool. Here you go. And then so that became sort of the core of our digital offering going forward from a, evolution standpoint. Then as you think about it, paywalls are inherently going to inhibit adoption or your ability to grow fan bases without meaningful marketing spend. And so to be a little bit more efficient about it and to make sure that we're able to access and give fans more across the board, however which way they want to engage, that was part of, for example, launching our FAST channel. And so our FAST channel is available nationally. It includes shoulder programming and live vodcasts, and as well as additional VOD and other live sports content as well. And the idea is, hey, NESN's been around for 40 years, engaging sports fans, especially those that, lean New England sports or Boston Red Sox or Boston Bruins. And we want to make sure that we're available to them across the country. And that, we have a top of funnel approach where we're bringing new people into the fold. So people that haven't necessarily been introduced to NESN, we're bringing them in and like, hey, here's content that you'll like and enjoy, and it's brand safe and it's family friendly, and it's the best kind of content. And so there's the D2C, there's the fast piece. We also have NESN.com, which was one of the earlier sports sites, especially for an RSN. I think we might be the only RSN that's doing meaningful numbers on web. But it was launched years ago, and we have fantastic domain authority, and we use that also to engage fans across the board. In front of the paywall, we have comments in our articles, which sometimes is fun to read, but also sometimes not so fun to read. But it's an opportunity for passionate sports fans to engage with brands and content and things that they care about.
After having launched NESN Nation, and obviously you spoke about NESN.com and NESN 360, and then of course the RSN linear network as well. And I'm sure you have a presence on social. I'm sure you have a presence on YouTube. How do you guys take all the data on content viewership or even the personalized data that you're now able to capture through your direct to consumer products and make sense of like what the insights are on who to serve what, where, when, and why? What's the philosophy there? I mean, you guys are, like you said, gonna be at your three-year anniversary, and I also know that recently you guys decided to make a shift in who's doing the back end for your app, which we can speak about. But or was that at all informed by what you were getting or doing yourself in house? But I'll pause there so you can kind of answer more specifically.
Yeah, I'll answer the first part around the content specifically. I think for the most part, the sport, in conversations I've had with other sports fans, they're engaging pretty consistently across different platforms, where you have a situation where obviously the biggest level of interest is in the live games. And you see it in ratings also. You see all the different networks ratings and the spikes around game time and drop-offs and so on. But, and this is something I sort of bring over from my time at Stars, where you had people that were interested in a specific series. Now, some of them went on to watch a movie. Some of them went on to watch another series. Some of them went on to watch a documentary. Some of them went on to watch the behind the scenes. And some of them watched literally nothing else. And so part of it for us, and I think what's interesting about our circumstance is that we're not just a media network, but rather our ownership structure is such that our interests are aligned with the teams, where it's not just about the media network. It's about growing fandom. And so taking that lens to it, it's a couple different things that we do with that. One is we take the content learnings and figure out where and what to invest in. And so when we first launched, we launched with a handful of different digital exclusive pieces of content. Some of them we kept and renewed, some of them we didn't. But part of the benefit of being in D2C and in streaming is you get real-time data and you can pivot and learn. And as long as you're trusting the process and have the right process, you're just going to get better, right? Like you think about Netflix. Netflix is infinitely better than they were even a couple of years ago, because they just know what people are interested in based on behavior. But then the other part that I'm not so sure traditional media networks do is the part around growing fandom, where there's an interesting interplay here between content and marketing, if you will, where we are using the team and the content that we have to market the service and the teams themselves. And you see this playing out differently in other media organizations, maybe, where the two are really bifurcated. But in this case, we work really closely together of making sure that we're, as part of our marketing efforts, both growing the service and access to the service, but also using it as an opportunity, to your point, like whether it's YouTube or social or whatever it might be, to keep fans engaged and interested in the teams, or aware of what's going on with the teams, or why they should be interested in the teams, or who's being called up, or like what's Christian Campbell's story, stuff like that. That is, I think, unique to sports.
Yeah, I love that answer, because a lot of the teams we speak to, they're of the decision of, do they stick with making something in-house? Do they launch their own linear network? Do they launch their own D2C? Or do they go and partner with another company that has, expertise that can fill those gaps, but perhaps different KPIs and goals to achieve? And I think centrally, probably the big existential question for any sports organization, especially in this marketplace on the media side we have now with all the disruption, is how are you preserving that fandom? How are you building that fandom with all the entertainment competition that you have today? It was a very lucrative model before on the RSN side, on the cable side, when there was no YouTube, when there was no Netflix, was there no opportunity to see something else that you might be interested in than a regular season Wednesday night inconsequential ball game. So it's great to hear from you on the benefits of doing stuff yourself and having the interests aligned throughout the whole organization as a media company, but also as a team product, because at the end of the day, you're trying to win championships, you're trying to get people to wear a Red Sox gear, you're trying to get people to watch, care about that team. So awesome to hear. We recently spoke to John Heidke and Jim Cochran over at the Texas Rangers, and they made the same bet, a similar bet. Obviously, NESN's had their own network for the longest time and has had that distribution, but they made the decision to launch Ranger Sports Network and to launch the DTC, and it was it's a big market, it's a successful team, big investments they've already made, and I think they saw an opportunity similar to what you guys are grabbing today in building their own fans and creating content in the lens of building the fandom. So kudos to you guys. On we're talking a little bit about the Rangers and the single team model, but you have the benefit of also having the Bruins.
Yeah.
And I know you also leverage some Liverpool FC content for NESN Nation. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of doing that? I mean, you guys have probably looked at all the data between who are baseball fans, who are Bruin fans, who are hockey fans, and matching them up and creating the Venn diagrams. And in terms of a content offering, and like you said, your time's at Stars. There are people who came to watch and then stayed for something else, and then there's others who just came for the one thing. As a chief marketing officer, your job's probably really cut out for you. Can you explain maybe a little bit day to day, like how you're thinking through stuff, what you're doing, what's working, what are you excited about?
NESN's been around for 40 years. And I think that is a important piece to our puzzle, at least. We get the benefit of, you ask anybody across the U.S. if that grew up in New England, like, hey, where do you watch the Sox or the Bruins? They'll tell you on NESN. Whereas, you ask somebody, hey, where do you watch some of the other teams that maybe haven't had the continuity that we've had or have had to deal with a handful of different distribution challenges or whatever, like people don't know where to go. And so putting on a marketing hat for a moment, like the first part is just people knowing where you are. And fortunately, we have that solved. Then it's just a matter of, okay, cool. Like, where your teams are. Like, now it's a matter of like, how do you get access? And then for us, it's just a matter of, okay, great. Let's make it as easy as possible for people to get access. And then the stuff that you're talking about is more downstream of like, cool. Like, now that you have access or you subscribe, whether it's pay TV package, whether it's DTC or something else, how do we keep you around or get you interested in more that we might have? Every Red Sox or every Bruins game is a theatrical hit. And if you take the media lens and put it on, and it's like, can you guarantee that every movie is going to be a hit or every series is going to be a hit? No. But can you guarantee that people are going to tune in and watch a live sports game for these iconic teams? Yes. So that's an exciting piece of what we have at our disposal. And I kept that with me in that, we have fantastic foundation. It's a matter of, cool, like, how do we build from there, make it more available, and so on.
What are the like marketing tactics that you think there's for you, particularly either on the cross-pollination side across Bruins fans, Red Sox fans, or even Celtics fans who aren't on your network? What are some of the ones that you think have worked? I mean, each market is different, right? And I imagine the tactics are different across the board. But for you guys, from whether it's driving people to linear or people to just generally watch the game, wherever it may be, can you share a little bit about what you guys have done differently, or you think that it works for you guys?
A lot of people follow athletes, then the team, then the league. We were in a situation, especially last year, where there was a fantastic Red Sox team, but a lot of them were new or young and less familiar in the market. And so the challenge for us was, great, like, how do we help fans build the connection with these athletes that we know are fantastic, that we know are going to make the team really good, and that are only going to get better. But that was the hurdle. And I think that there was some research done about, hey, who's your favorite player on the team? And, a lot of people didn't have a favorite or, didn't recognize a lot of the players. And so, it's a clearly identifiable challenge, but then, the solution is just more, it's fun because going into this season, for example, we did a series of like Meet the Red Sox and Meet the Prospects, where in the countdown to opening day, it was like, hey, let us introduce you to everybody on the team and like why you should be excited about them. Because we are.
Yeah. Now I watched The Clubhouse on
Yeah.
Netflix, which was your almost like your docu series for the Red Sox, and very different in Drive to Survive, which is high octane, high adrenaline. But the docu series was so good. It gave you like the feeling of like those nostalgic baseball movies, just like, the smell of the grass, being at Fenway, seeing the monster, getting the people who've been fans for years, but then introducing you to stars like, probably not a star yet, and he probably wouldn't call himself a star, but he's certainly a character, Tristan Casas. Like,
Yeah.
this guy was injured most of the year, but like he's super unique, super interesting. He like paints his nails. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's like a yoga freak, like, and now, I mean, I'm a Dodgers fan,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to look at the Red Sox box score to see like how, unfortunately, he's injured now, but I'm like, okay, how are they going to fill the gap there? Or when are they going to call up Ramon Anthony? When are they going to all of these storylines, which I thought, one, if you're a listener and you haven't watched The Clubhouse, absolutely watch it. It's so well done. It's by the same guy who made Cheer, and I think there's also a wrestling docuseries on Netflix that's very good too.
Yep.
But I like what you said in terms of like, sports fandom is now transitioning maybe away from you and I are like millennials to like Gen Zers are all about the athlete and the stories behind the athlete. And the more you can leverage and amplify their stories, their voices, that's what people are tuning into. Where I thought you were going to go with that question was, how do I, what makes me interested in games that are not my local teams? Like, I'm going to tune into a Dodger game. I'm going to tune into the Lakers game if there's stakes or is an interesting matchup. But there was a feature on the ESPN app maybe 2 years ago, and I don't know, it kind of just went away on my phone, or maybe some update got rid of it. But I had randomly set up notifications every time two top 25 teams were playing each other in college basketball. And I'm like not a college basketball fan all that much. Like I tune in for the tournament. That's about it. And I found myself being like, oh, I'm not watching anything tonight. Let me just put on this like Duke Clemson game. It's like a number 2, number 4 matchup. So all of a sudden there was context behind the marketing push that I got. And that's what helped drive me in. I haven't really seen anyone really do it. I mean, on the ESPN app, I can also favorite players, but I really just get served their highlights after they're aired, because the sports media marketplace, as you know, is so fragmented on where the rights are, who has the highlight rights, when they're done. We sometimes get in our own way in how we serve fans. But that's where I thought you were going with it. But I also totally agree. I mean, I think athletes are a big way to go, but you have a historical brand in the community that people really rally behind. And when the team wins, it's easy. It sells itself. When it's not winning, it's harder to kind of show. But like the Clubhouse showed, and I think the reason Drive to Survive is so, and you could probably attribute the success of Formula One, is you only saw Lewis Hamilton winning for so many years. And then you only saw Max Verstappen winning. But when you watch that docuseries, you actually got to look into the number 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down to 20 racers. And it became more interesting because you saw the drama across the board.
Yes.
So they're teams who are maybe in rebuilding years, or who are on the up, or don't have a star player. Probably creative ways about getting and creating content that I think like can probably learn a bit from you guys.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head of like when the team's not winning, it's tough. But at the same time, as being part of the media, if you will, your job is essentially to tell people this is why this is interesting and why you should watch or engage. And as an extreme, you could look at the Taylor Swift effect, if you will, of like, it just so happened that the Chiefs are a really fantastic team. But if they weren't and Taylor Swift was at the game, people would still have been watching.
I mean, yeah, it'd be a hate watch, right? I mean, people would do that to see like, oh, Taylor Swift's dating like the number 2 tight end on this team that's like 2 and 4 or 2 and 8. Like, I would still be interested.
Right? Exactly. That'd
have been a better case study.
But it'd be more fun.
I guess I'm curious for your thoughts on just baseball as a whole, in terms of like not just the Red Sox, but in terms of viewership, in terms of consumption, in terms of media trends, do you have any like predictions or thoughts on how people will be watching in the next 5 years or within the next 5 years, or things you'd like to see happen?
Here, let me put it this way. So I took my 2-year-old daughter to a Red Sox game a couple weeks ago, and there's this perception that the younger generation doesn't have the attention span for the way baseball is played. Um, and here's a 2-year-old child who was just like absolutely mesmerized watching people like a full-on baseball game on the field. We left early to put her to bed, and she was like, more baseball. So I pulled it up on my phone on NESN 360. She's watching before bed, and the game happened to end. And so I turned it off. She's like, more baseball.
Oh my God, look at this. This is why you're the chief marketing officer. You got an NESN 360 plug in there, so then you turn on NESN Nation, I'm assuming.
But I mean, everybody knows that baseball's audience has skewed older, but I actually think that's more a reflection of the distribution challenges and what's going on in the distribution ecosystem. I do think if you make baseball more accessible to younger audiences, it's America's pastime. It's a fantastic sport, and everybody knows, you go to the ballpark once and, at before X age and you're a fan for life sort of thing. And it is a fundamentally amazing experience to be at the ballpark with family, and it's family friendly, and, watching with your family at home also. And so to me, the key for baseball is getting it in front of more audiences and letting people connect to it a little bit more. And I think for me, I didn't grow up with baseball. I mean, I did. Like, I grew up in New Jersey, and so it was like shoved in my face because
Yeah,
the
but
Yankees were so
you're
kind of
you're
to the point where I
Egyptian
was
growing
turned
up
off
in
from
New Jersey.
baseball.
I was a Pakistani guy growing up in LA. I wasn't exposed to baseball until I went to high school.
Yeah, and so like the people that I grew up with were huge fans, but I grew up playing basketball and football, and baseball wasn't really my thing. And so one, it was easier to come here and become an instant Red Sox fan. But two is I've always appreciated baseball and its connection to communities and how local it is, and how easy it is to
You guys
share
actually
it with
did a
people that you
price
care about.
drop
And
for NESN 360, and you can say it much better than I can, but there were some positive results, obviously, as you would expect. But what was the thinking and some of the research that went into that, and how do you guys feel about it?
yeah, as you know intimately, pricing is never easy. And we saw obviously ESPN came out with their price point. Um, it's a tough nut to crack because you're comparing an entirely new business model with an existing one that has historically been really beneficial for all parties, the fans, the distributors, the networks, teams. It's worked out really well, and so it's a bit of a balancing act going forward. Of, well, this is supposed to be incremental or supplemental for people that don't have a pay TV package, but you also want to make it accessible.
And you want to build more fans,
And
right?
so, yeah, and so it's a really tough balancing act to navigate. And we went into it originally like, hey, you know what? Let's give people as much value as possible, and we went with the path of the tickets for annual plans in lieu of discounting annual further. And then now this go around, we just said, hey, we're at a point where we do want to make sure it is even more accessible to as many people as possible. And so that was the idea behind going to the equivalent of $20 a month if somebody prepays. And then going into the beginning of the season, we thought, let's over-index on giving fans more, where we still made tickets available for new subscribers coming in on an annual plan. This time it was 4 tickets
Okay,
instead of
okay.
8.
All right. You given enough people enough benefit already. So no, the team also looks like it's on
Thank
the
you.
up too, which is exciting and cool. I want to shift a little bit to ask a little bit about you and your career and where you came from before. And you got some background in consulting, some background in some banking a little bit too, and also on the media side. Can you speak to like what you've done? For a lot of our listeners are people looking to crack into the sports industry, but also people are looking to get like various different expertise and insights on how folks have like navigated their career path. So the elevator pitch, give it to me, Ahmed Darwish. How did you kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah. So I studied engineering and, like I said before, at USC. And so naturally it was tougher to stay away from media than go into media. And one of my first internships was actually with NBC Universal, helping them upgrade SNL to high def at 30 Rock. Which is fun, but that was sort of the start of being in media. And then fast forward, I was at DirecTV, where I was in advanced analytics. And at the time I was thinking about either business school or doubling down on data science. Ended up getting into tech and decided to go there. And while there, I decided to go into consulting, ended up at McKinsey, and for the most part, ended up aligning with the consumer tech and media practice and TMT more broadly. And tried to pursue the coolest projects I could. A lot of them happened to be in the media space, and it helped that I had the experience at DirecTV, which, back then and still are, they were just an absolute powerhouse when it comes to subscription and growth. And if you think about it, back then, DirecTV didn't really have as compelling an offering from a product standpoint. They had probably the best content lineup, but maybe from a world that was transitioning into broadband, they didn't really have a broadband offering. And so they were competing with, get your pay TV package plus fiber internet all in one. And that was what they were competing against. And yet they were still growing. So they were doing a really good job. They were fantastic operators. Fast forward, I had a great time at McKinsey, worked across the media landscape, everything from newspaper publishing to broadcast media to, suppliers of those industries, and did a project or two in sports, did a handful of hospitality and other tech-oriented projects. And then I had the cool part about being in consulting is you have an idea, and I'm sure you get to see this, is that you have an idea of where industries are going or what the biggest challenges clients are facing. And so when you know what the challenges the clients are facing, sort of the direction things are going. And so Starz was actually really early when it came to streaming. They launched well before Disney Plus and a handful of others. And Starz just happened to finish their spin out from Lionsgate. And I'm excited to see how that goes and how they're doing. But I had an opportunity to join Starz in an operational role, leading product for and growing D2C internationally even. And then when the NESN opportunity came up, I knew that sports was next when it came to streaming and D2C. And having been in media my whole life, sports and live was probably where I was lightest. And I thought, what better place to advance that than within NESN or Fenway Sports Group more broadly.
That's awesome. And you, like you mentioned on the consulting side, but if you're just a nerd for the industry like you and I are, you look to all the challenges and perhaps have some predictions for where stuff's going to go. Do you have any like bold predictions on the media marketplace? I'll answer it too, but I mean, I'm curious for yours. You're more interesting here. And I'll let you caveat it with what percentage of likelihood you think it would happen, so that you don't sound like a complete idiot when we cut this for TikTok.
It's funny. One of the things that I realized in sports is how many partners and people you work with. And so you just have to be careful what you say.
Totally. It could come back and bite you for sure.
But I mean, my predictions are, the big tech guys who have been slow to adopt sports are going to start doing so way more aggressively than they have historically, as they realize that I think this is what Netflix realized. Like they capped out on growth. And then the next frontier for them is sports and live. You're going to see that more probably with Google or YouTube or whatever permutation Google wants that to take. Apple, I think, has been trying to figure it out. Amazon, I think, is probably ahead of everybody. But you have so many other players in the marketplace that are just about to enter the sports world, as the sports world is probably migrating more to streaming. And so I'd say my prediction is that there's going to be a lot of change over the next couple of years, and you're going to have a lot of new entrants into the world of sports, which is, I think, exciting and good for everybody.
I mean, I know you asked me the same question, so I'll answer it. But I think like no one's been able to put their finger on the crystal ball accurately on when pay TV is going to go away, or if it is ever going to go away. I personally don't think it's ever going to go away. I still think the bundle model is a very strong model. I think the cable bundle has had a problem of not innovating fast enough. And I also think back in the day when it was like we have 1,000+ channels was like a marketing play, is now seen as like, why am I paying for all this stuff that I don't watch? So the consumer is almost needing to be retrained on like what it is exactly they're going to pay for. So I think bundles will get reimagined. Now, I think before we get to that bundle, there's going to be some hurt on like the haves and the have-nots, and there'll be consolidation. My biggest question, and I don't have a great answer yet for this, but is like, is it going to get to a point where like, pro sports valuations are going through the roof, and a lot of them were before predicated on cable TV and license fees increasing. But if that revenue line is tested, challenged, or goes away to some extent, and D2C isn't seen as profitable, is there a great reset? And if the reset happens, how does it look then? I know you don't want to hear that answer. I know a lot of teams don't want to hear that answer. But what can teams do to kind of stem that or get out in front of it? And that leads me to my second bold prediction, which is, I think for league properties that are not the NFL, that are not probably pro soccer, how do you rethink the regular season model to make it more must-see TV? So obviously I think baseball made great steps for the rules changes. The product's gotten better from a TV viewing perspective. The NBA has done the in-season tournament to take a page out of soccer. Those things are going to take time to develop and invest and get some sort of prestige behind it. But in terms of a TV product, has the NHL, they did the Four Nations, incredible. How is the MLB, how's the NBA going to kind of push the envelope further to make the regular season also must-see TV? That's, I think, the big question. And I don't have a bold prediction. My bold prediction is that they're going to hopefully have to do something dramatic to make those products even better. And I'm excited for that as a sports fan, as a sports media person. It's a scary proposition to stare at, I think, for a lot of folks. Yeah. And it'll take a lot of, I've worked at a league office, so I know how it is to like wrangle owners to make changes, for the sake of just making a change out of like a future potential promise. But those are the two. That's probably the best way I can answer those.
I love these, but I have a perspective.
Bring it.
On the latter, I think you're spot on, and I think I would add to that, and I'm biased obviously, but I would add to what you said about the league sort of reimagining the regular season and making it more watchable despite the volume of games and content. I would add that is especially where RSNs and local and other media networks become that much more important, because the league could only do so much before you really have to rely on local expertise, local distribution, local connections, et cetera, to make sure that you're relevant every game. And I mean, that's what we do, right? I mean, that's the whole model behind RSNs of like, we are going to get people to watch, and we're going to explain to them why you should watch this random game on a Wednesday afternoon, for
No,
example.
I
The
100%
league
agree.
doesn't have
Even
the
look at the
capacity to do that.
NFL, which is like a national model, but even there, like windows are regionalized, and it's important. It's for
Yeah.
building rivalry. It's the products you look at. I think a big amazing thing the EPL has done for so long is the fan bases will revolt if the ticket prices change, right? Which is why the ticket prices are so cheap.
Yeah.
Now the American owners who are all going into EPL are looking at it and like, oh
People
my
are
God,
looking at
like I could make more by increasing the prices, but the fans will revolt. But I think the
yes.
amazing consequence of that is that you have sold out stadiums, hyper passionate fans, whether you suck, whether
Mm,
you get relegated, whether you're in the Champions League. And that energy and passion, it like carries over. Now these are all global properties. Like EPL teams are global properties.
yes.
And, they're probably capped out on how much revenue they make from ticket sales, but you've got everybody watching every one of their games because you could talk about how their model is, and you guys know, like with Liverpool, like it's a global phenomenon. You can then take these guys to go and play in Singapore or to play in the summer in the U.S. and then charge a crazy price because I'm an Arsenal fan. You can see, and I'll go pay 400 to watch Arsenal B team play Barcelona B team at SoFi.
But I think what you just said would have been my counter to your first prediction, or more so a concern about what's going on with the value of the media rights for these teams. My pushback is exactly like you just said. Teams in sports generally are just such a fantastic asset class, and at the end of the day, it is IP. And IP that reinvents really every year, right? Like, if you think about it, Marvel is IP, and you get a new Marvel character or movie every X number of years or whatever it might be. But a sports team is a sports team, and every season there's a shot at a championship, and every year there's a different lineup or whatever it might be. And just by virtue of existing, you're refreshing your IP and creating new storylines. And I think, sure, the way the IP gets monetized might change or might evolve, but the value of the IP inherently is only going to go up.
I completely agree, which is why I'm in this business, which is why I still am bullish on sports. I think, it'd be a difference of whether there's going to be a reset. And I only say a reset in that if it gets reset, I think it'll just go back up because, again, the product is, the IP is so strong. So I think we're completely aligned on that front. I've taken a lot of your time. I do want to get to our rapid fire questions, which will be quick and fun, and then we can wrap it up. You ready for it? What's the first app you check in the morning?
NESN 360. Actually, it's my Outlook. I check my work email.
What's your favorite sports moment of all time?
I went to USC during the heyday of Pete Carroll, so I have a lot from those 4 years, but probably, I don't know if folks remember the Bush push, but the play before that was 4th and 9, where Liner threw a 61-yard pass to
Dwayne Jarrett.
Dwayne Jarrett that set up the play. That was phenomenal.
I was in high school at the time, and my sister was at SC, and those are some of the best too. I was gonna say the Reggie Bush, like the stop against Fresno State, where he was running around the sideline.
Yes, I was there.
Dude. That was amazing.
Are you sure? It looked like a video game.
We've never seen anything like it. And then like Christian McCaffrey comes, and it's like, okay, there's another one. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Espresso with a splash of milk.
What's one marketing buzzword you wish you could retire?
It's not necessarily a buzzword, but impressions. I hate vanity metrics. Like, show me what the impact is. I don't care how many impressions.
Yeah, ROI focused. I like it. Well, the last great book or podcast you consumed?
My friends that I talked to about this are going to be sick of me bringing it up. But during the pandemic, I read the book The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee. And in the first half of the book, he talks about how we got to our current understanding of genetics. And the second half of the book is about the implications and things that we understand about genetics. It's just like so mind blowing. And I just appreciate it so much because I'm so deep in media and sports and business, that it was so cool to step out into the world of science and literally look at the underpinnings of
cool.
humanity.
I got to check this one out. If you weren't in marketing, what would you be doing today?
Data science.
Ahmed, thank you so much for sharing this time with us and your insights. It was a pleasure to have you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us. My email is umar@navigate.com, and you can also connect with us on my personal LinkedIn or the Navigate page. Ahmed, any final words?
No, this is great. Thank you, Omar. Always fun to chat about our evolving sports and media
Likewise.
landscape. It's a fun time.